Firstly, I just wanted to go through. This is the memo for last year's final exam, where we created citizens who could vote, etc., and we created that. But now, in this instance, do you think this would have any real use in real life? Only being able to have a citizen having to create an individual variable for each individual citizen. No. That's pretty sucky, isn't it? So we start getting introduced to arrays. Now, arrays you used when dealing with Scratch. You created lists which would allow you to have multiple different positions with different data. Do you guys remember using lists in Scratch? Yeah. And you could refer to position 0, refer to position 1, and so forth. Now, for interest's sake, we could have a vote. A data type can be an array. So in other words, I could have an array with square brackets indicating an array, as well as a class. So anything can be an array. You can have an array of any type of object. You can have an array of a variable, or you can have an array of a class. Does this make sense? Which means you'll have an array of objects. Remember, what's the difference between a class and an object? Class is a blueprint. An object is when you create an instance of that blueprint, and then it becomes an object in RAM. Do you guys get that? Yeah. Okay, so that's quite a big concept there. So now, if I go to my GUI and we want to create multiple citizens, we would create a square brackets here. So literally all we're doing is we're adding in square brackets to indicate that there is going to be multiple of these. And I would call it citizens. So I'd give it a plural name of what we're referring to, or you could give it any name you wanted to. And then you would say is equal to new citizen, and then you'd have to specify a size. Now, we need to understand a concept between... so in this situation, we've got citizen array. So square brackets just indicates that it's an array. Angie and I have to add onto it initializing the size of the array. And the reason why at a high school level you deal with arrays, if you ever do IT at a university level, you will deal with also lists. Now the difference between these, in an array, you're basically stipulating, remember that variables are pointers, right? Do you guys remember that? Yeah. So now, in an array, you're basically creating a whole bunch of pointers. So let's say if I said citizens is equal to, just for the sake of ease, I'm going to say is equal to 5. It'll be the same as creating 5 pointers. Does that make sense? If I said citizen array, citizens is equal to new citizens. Thank you, you're right. Well spotted. There's 6 there. So then that would be my 5 pointers. Then you'd have to initialize the different positions in the array. Now this is obviously a bit limiting, isn't it? Why? Because I'm specifying? Yes, I'm specifying that we're only allowed 5 citizens. This is horrible, isn't it? Now, at a school level, we solve this. Well, solve it. It's not technically solved, but by literally just creating it as a crazy size. And I'll show you how to deal with that at a later stage with dealing with the crazy size. But first, I just want to get you an understanding of this concept. Now, also, when you were initializing, for example, here where we said is equal to new citizen Melania Trump and equals to new citizen, here you would say citizen position 0 is equal to new, and citizens position 1. Now, what do you like? What do you like about this ability to refer to each individual positions? Is the fact that this is a numerical value, which means that you could pass through any. You could do it in a loop. You could do it every single time you want to add a new one. You can just increment the value that you're currently on, can't you? So it allows you to refer to multiple of them in loops and iterations. You can just keep track of variables and where you're at. So it allows the referring to it to be easier. Now, we're dealing with 5 here, which means for it to actually work effectively, we would need to have 5 of them initialized. I'm not going to go ahead and initialize 5. But when I said is equal to Melania Trump is equal to new citizen Melania Trump, you would literally create a new object in RAM. So let's say, for example, position 0 will now refer to D1, which means here would be restored Melania Trump. What was the citizen? 11. Okay, so Melania Trump 11. And this, for example, would refer to D8. And D8 would be where Hillary Clinton was stored. And District 12, whatever. Now, that was Bill Clinton, sorry. Now, on that statement, you'll see that these are memory pointers. The objects are created in RAM. You have a memory reference. And if I said citizens position 0, it will be referring to D1 and it will get this object over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the object, if this is the object over here, it will receive that there. If I said citizens position 0, if I said citizen position 1. Now what this does allow us for is the following. Let me quickly do votes as well. So I'm going to say vote, you say array, I call it votes is equal to new vote, and I'd say there size 5. So now I've got 5 votes and 5 citizens. But technically I only have 2 right now, so for the sake of right now, I'm just going to put there 2 and 2. So we're only going to work with 2 right now. And then this is still wrong because this should be citizen position 0. So when I refer to it, I just refer to the position citizen position 1 and it's citizens. Okay, and this is votes position votes. Okay, so literally we've now got it where we're initializing the 2 position. Now when we want to display, this is where it becomes helpful. I want to display all citizens here, right? You guys following? So what I can do now is I can literally just go string sall is equal to blank. So create a blank string. I can loop through citizens.length, which means it will loop through the entire size of the array. Do you guys understand that part so far? And then I'll just go sall plus equals citizens position I dot toString plus \n \n. Set text to be sall. Now I know right now this is more code to do 2 citizens, but this would work as well if I created an array of size 500. It would work for 500 citizens.
So there's any way to make it just loop itself? So constantly create the new citizen.
We'll get there. Technically the data has to come from somewhere, and that's when we get into reading from text files, is the citizens would come from a text file. So you'll read in the citizens from somewhere. Because a computer can't just make up data.
You could use
The question was, why not allow the user to create blank 500 and put blank ones in there and then allow the user to enter data, but you might as well also just initialize them when the user enters the data. So when the user enters the data, you initialize a new spot, but we're getting to that. Yes, citizens.length, right now, that would return 2. If I said there 500, that would be 500. So citizens.length gets the length of the citizen, the number of citizens that are in that array. Now, moving on from there, if I go and I get into my, we'll have to do the same for the votes. Now in this case,
Sorry.
let me just pause the video. Is a situation which would have helped us. For every single vote, we would have had to have a new if statement. But now this would help us because now we could actually do this in a for loop.
Gotta
love the for loop. Now we could do this in the for loop, and we could say while votes dot length. So we're saying the size of votes. So this will loop through, and then I'll just say votes position I is valid, and votes position I is family vote. So here, instead of having to repeat what we were doing for every single individual vote, we can do it in a loop, so it will check for every single vote if it needs to be added or not. Does that make sense? So we'll iterate through each vote, and if it's 5 votes or 2 votes or 100 votes, it doesn't matter. We'll iterate through individual votes and go, hey, are you existent? Hey, are you existent? Hey, do you match this? So instead of having to redo it every single time, we can put it in a loop structure. Now, right now, we're doing it for 2 votes, so it's not very, it doesn't help much, but if it was 5 votes, it would help. Now, this is all hand well, it helps us out a bit. Let me just find out where there's a couple more errors so we can run this so I can show you that it works. It just needed to be saved, look through that. So now it will run fine, and if I now say display citizens, it will work, and if I say display votes, it will work. It will only display votes that are valid. So, this... this works. So technically my votes, did I have 4 votes? No, I don't know, only had 2. But it would work for any individual numbers. So this is literally what an array is. It's square brackets, and then you can go through multiple different objects of the same class via loops or iterations with referring to numbers. Do you guys follow that?
Yeah.
Now, to go deal with the problem, we're only dealing with 2 here. That's not cool. What if we want a lot more than 2, etc.? Now, at university level, this is handled by something called a list. Now, a list, and if you guys at a matric level, if you guys want to, you're also welcome to use what's called an array list. Now, that's a class type which makes a list act like an array. However, you're not allowed to use that in your exams. You're only allowed to use that in your projects. The reason why is because an array list will help you do a whole bunch of things like sorting, searchings, and things with very easily, and will not actually won't show that you understand your concepts. So you're not allowed to use them in your exams. Anyway, a list. I agree, damn it. Now, a list is literally, let's say if I wanted to store the same data, Melania Trump, a list will say, okay, this list is starting at M1. And Melania Trump will be at M1. Let me control C that rather than control X that. Okay, so at M1, I'll put Melania Trump. But then Melania Trump will also at the end of it say M3. So now on M3 will be the next position of the next clients will be positioned there. So what are you noticing with that? And that one would then refer to wherever the next position was. So it will either say end or it will say to the next. So literally one object points to the next object. And the next object will point to the next object. So now are you limited to size?
No.
It is unlimited. So okay, yeah, eventually. But not by at least the code. You're not limited by the fact that the code or the structure of this to size. I mean, you're potentially limited by RAM size and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, you're not limited. So unlike an array, which would be specified to be a specific size, a list is endless. Well, you would have an end, but I mean, you can have it as big as you want. So if I added on a new one now, I'd say, okay, point to M6, and then I'd add on John Jacob. Okay, damn it. Don't be pedantic. Okay, so Jacob and John are there. Okay, anyway. But do you guys get the idea of a list?
Yeah.
I'm only wanting you to be aware of this. You do not do lists at high school level. The reason why is because then being able to, for example, sort them, be able to search through them, everything becomes a little bit more complicated because you can't refer to them by position 0, 1, 2, 3. You have to actually iterate through every individual one until you get to the one you want to find. So everything becomes trickier, and then you have to then deal with directly memory locations and so forth. So we don't deal with this. I just want you to be aware of a list. The next thing, so how we deal with it at high school is we go, well, 500, 1050. Okay. Basically, we create crazy sizes. It's in any data that we give you as an example at high school, 500 is going to be more than big enough. Obviously, in a company level, 500 isn't that big. Because for an example of high data usage, could you imagine e-tolls for every time a car goes under there? What kind of data usage that's going to use and that kind of structure. So if you look at number of items sold or whatever it might be, 500 is not that large. So what we do is we say 500, but now obviously this is going to, if I ran it now, what do you guys predict is going to happen?
It's going to be right.
Yeah, let's run it, let's test it. So now if I go and I say display citizens.
Why nothing?
Oh, nothing.
What did I say?
Oh, it said there, null pointer exception.
What did I say? I said
Now, the null pointer exception, so it was nothing, sorry. Null pointer means that, remember I told you that here it tells it's the memory reference, right?
Yeah.
That's not the physical objects aren't in here, it refers to objects. And now what happens if you have a variable, if you declare a variable but do not initialize it before you actually try to use it? Null pointer exception. Which means it will look at position 2 in the array and will go, hey, it's not pointing anywhere, null pointer exception. I don't know what you're referring to. You're talking bollocks. I should not use that word on YouTube. My bad. But anyway, no. Now, so do you guys follow that? Yes, no?
Yeah. Yes, no.
That the fact that it's gone over the end of it. So what we do is we do something like this. We go private int num citizens semicolon, and then in our constructor we'll go num citizens is equal to 0. We initialize our first citizen, num citizens plus plus. What does plus plus do? Add. It adds 1. It adds an individual number, so it adds a single. It increments it by 1. So then I'll do the same thing after I add my next. I'll do that. So now I'll do the same for my votes, as I would say private int num votes, and then every single time I added, I would say num votes is equal to 0. And every single time I added a vote, what would I do? Num votes plus plus. Num votes. Sorry about that. Num votes plus plus. Now this would increment by 1 each time, right?
Yeah.
So now instead of looping to the citizens.length, I'll loop up till no, not num plus plus. Num citizens. Because num citizens contains the number of citizens that are there. And instead of votes.length, I'll. So now it will loop up till the number. So every time I add a new object, I'll increment the number, the total size. So for example, now this, if I had num citizens, it would be right now. It would be 2. When I added another one, so that referred to, let's say, D4, so we've added here, give me a name.
James Wilson. No.
Okay, now James Wilson, number of citizens would increase to 3. So now it would loop until it got through them. It would loop up 0, 1, 2. So it loops through each of those memory references. Do you guys get that? And add a next person. It will add next personal increments to 4. So as you add, you increment. Do you guys get this concept? I do understand that it's for this, but this structure is still limiting because now we're initializing only 2 variables, right? We're initializing only 2 objects, citizens, and 2 votes. It's still pretty sucky.
Yeah.
So we create a method. A nice way of solving this is we create a method called public add citizen. Now when we add a citizen, we'll receive a string, I think it was name, is that right? And then an int district. And this will be void. It doesn't return anything, it just does something. And on there we are going to say citizen position num citizens is equal to new citizen full name district semicolon num dish citizens plus plus. Now just bear with me here for a second. I want all these to go away. If you guys take a look at this method, I can send anything through to it and it will add it and it will increment. The first time num citizens is 0, right? So if I now go ahead, control Y, sorry, hey, damn it. Just to make it a bit prettier. If I now go ahead and do this whole Melania Trump thing, if I just go add citizen, same thing here. It's going to now add Melania Trump, and then it's going to add Bill Clinton. The first time, if we had to structure this, the first time num citizens is 0. It runs as add citizen. Num citizen is currently 0. So it's going to add the new citizen to position 0, and then it's going to increment add num citizens, so num citizens is now 1. The next time I run it, it adds it into here. Num citizen is now 1, so it'll add to position 1, and it'll create a new citizen. Are you guys following?
Yeah.
You sure? Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to take the vote thing and do the same thing. So for the vote, we would go public void add vote, and the vote requires what? It requires a citizen and a candidate, and then an int district. And we're going to do the same thing. Votes position num votes is equal to new votes candidate the district num votes plus plus semicolon. And now instead of doing all of this stuff, num votes is equal to 0. And now instead of doing all this stuff, I'll just go add votes So every time I wanted to add a vote, you would just literally run your add vote or add citizen method. Do you guys follow? So add vote, add citizen. Bam. This method will run it, this method will run it. Now, moving on from that, do you guys get the concept of this? Yes, no?
Yeah.
But I'll add citizen, we'll add citizen, I'll add votes, we'll add votes, and we'll increment, etc. Now, what's nice about this is we can do the following as well. I'm going to change my layout a little bit. I don't want to do that. I want to design this panel. Whoa. Very fun. Navigate out. Alright. I want to design this panel specifically, but this is why GUI sometimes is a little bit fidgety, but don't complain. I am complaining. I'm trying not to complain, but it's difficult. I want to design this component specifically. I might have to just change the... Okay. Goodbye. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to work with this then. I'm going to put a panel into the center here. I'm then going to go set layout to grid layout. I'm going to then say for this grid layout, put it by 2 columns, 1 row. I'm then going to put a text area over here. So I'm just messing around with my layout so that I can actually. And the second thing I want to add is I want to add a panel to this component here. And in this panel, I'll have the set layout to be grid layout. I'm keeping this in the video just because I do think you guys need to learn to just mess around with layouts and work with layouts and whatnot. So 1, 2 rows. I'm then going to put a panel in. I'm going to put another panel in. I'm then going to change the border of this to be a title border. I'm then going to put the title of this border to be candidate. I'm then going to change the title of this border to be title new vote. Now, on the new candidate, now what I can do is I can say, okay, name So I'm going to, the user can enter in the name here, and then after name, I could go and I could ask the user to enter in a numerical value to enter the district. Now, here's, have you guys heard the term giggle?
Yeah, like
I told you Gigo, and Gigo's got to do with the fact that it's got to do with garbage in, garbage out. So you need to try limit the input so the user doesn't input rubbish. Now, one of the ways of doing that is using GUI components to limit the input. So to use a GUI component here, I could use something like a what's called a spinner. And a spinner, we can limit what the user actually is allowed to input. So here, I could make it to this size. And in here, I can say, for the model, I must allow it so that only a number can be inputted. And the districts, we only have 0 through to 15 are our districts. We only have districts 0 through to 15. So I'll stop it from allowing the user to input anything invalid. Do you guys get that? I then create a button, and on the button, I could say add candidate. You guys got this?
Yeah.
Now, on this button add candidate, we can sit there, and when I click this button, it will physically add the candidate to my array. So we can now do this, can't we? I can go add candidate. When I click add candidate, we can run a method add candidate. We can create that method, and I know, guys, I will explain this afterwards. Oh, I needed to change it, the name of my text thing. Otherwise, it's going to give me hassles. If I go back to my design here, change this variable's text name to txt display, should get rid of most of my underlines or all of my underlines, read underlines. So now on my add candidate, in GUI, a very, very good or good practice, if you are working with anything in code, name it. So if you are working with anything in code, make sure you name it something logical. So now what I can do is I can go string name is equal to txt candidate name dot get text. Remember, your getters and setters of your different objects. And then I want int district to equal to spn candidate dot get value. Now, ironically, the get value get. That's a good question. What is it? Candidate district. Let me quickly find out what it is. Could be asked in an exam to use a spin bar or anything like that. But different items have different things that you need to learn to do. Quite frankly, you can Google them, or you can just use a video here I've shown you now. To get it, you just go spin.getModel, get value, then you change that value and you cast it. This is called casting. You force it into an integer. You don't need to learn this for part. You can use the video and you can work with that to use a spin. You'll then work with a district. It would then install a district. We can then just go. What was our manager called? Oh, we create an array of stuff here. So now we can just go add candidate or citizen. Bam. So now if I run it, give me a candidate. Okay, so first if I say display citizens, so this should say new citizen, not new candidate. My bad. So now give me a name.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Boy. Okay, Jeffrey Boy, and he's from District 3, so you see you have to force to spin add candidate. Now if I display citizens again, it shows there, right?
Yeah.
So now if I said bacon, cheese, and I say from District 2, add candidate, and I go display. Now this is bad coding, why?
You have to say display.
I have to click all the time. So what I should do is, as soon as after I add candidate, I should just rerun the method, and this is why it's important, display citizens. And this should actually be called display citizens, not candidate. Add citizen. Now, so if I press play here, you'll see there that now, if I go citizens, it displays citizens. And as soon as I go bacon, cheese, district 0, add candidate, it'll display, update the display as well. So you add it into the array. And this is why an array makes sense, is because you can add them individually and you can go add as many as you want. So if I wanted to now add 3 more different cheeses, okay, then now a whole bunch of bacon and cheeses, That's why also technically if you wanted your code to be good, you would clear this input and clear that input after you added it. So that the user wouldn't accidentally have to be, that it would show that it's been added, you would clear it afterwards. But that's got to do with, we're not going to do that in this is just an example. I do not think it is a good idea for me to go through reading from a text file now, because I think I've already blown your guys' minds. It's quite a lot that I've gone through with regards to concepts of arrays. So I'm happy for next week. You guys can either sit there and listen. Let me stop the video. Goodbye, guys. On the video.